So in conclusion, my hope is to reach at least one person out there who has suicidal thoughts or depression. I hope and pray that 1, you find the help that you need, and 2, you can start thinking more optimistically, even if it's just a little bit. I know it's easier said than done. I know that no one could possibly understand the amount of trauma and the amount of suffering that you've gone through. But let's just start somewhere. Let's take baby steps, okay? If you at all feel like Quacker has been feeling in these episodes that I shared, I want you to know that there's hope for you as well. Even though Tom and Jerry is a cartoon, there is still a lot of truth in Quacker's story. And as I've showed you at the beginning of this video, there's hope even for people who have the saddest beliefs about themselves. That anything is possible because God makes it possible. But that requires a little bit of faith on our part. That requires a lot of prayer. That requires a lot of hope. Hope that we can all obtain. And I know that the world is not all sunshine and rainbows and unicorns and pony princesses and magical kingdoms. Make your dreams come true. But regardless of how dark and cruel this world can be, I believe that God gave all of us gifts and purposes. I believe all of us have a little bit of hope inside, but we're too afraid to go look into it. We're too afraid to dissect that hope, to learn more about our potential. And it's very interesting when I see a testimony or a video or a story on YouTube, such as a weight loss journey or a from single to married journey, or just any kind of testimony in general. It doesn't have to be related to romance. It can also apply to accomplishing your hopes and dreams. None of these things would be possible without a little bit of hope. So no, we're not going to build a house in a day. We're not going to run an entire marathon without having ran 1 mile in our entire lives. No, we have to take it one step at a time, one brick at a time, one action at a time. That is the only way to accomplish any dream. So I encourage you today to place that first brick down on the concrete, because eventually you'll have a wall. As inspired by the wise words of Will Smith, eventually you're going to have that house that you always dreamed of, but you have to take it one brick at a time. But that journey doesn't have to be all gloomy. Quacker, by the grace of God, found the light at the end of his dark tunnel. Now it's your turn.
I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. From every tenement and every hamlet, from every state to every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands in singing the words of the old spiritual, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
I Had a Dream is the perfect title for this episode, not only because, spoiler alert, this entire episode was literally just a dream, but Black History Month represents a generation of heroes who had a dream, a vision in their head for how they wanted the world to change for the better, and what they proved was that equal rights for every race from any country was possible, even if the dream sounded ridiculous at the time to certain individuals. You mentally have to become that dream version of yourself.
A deep belief in your own dignity, your own worth. Don't allow anybody to make you feel that you are nobody. Always feel that you count. Always feel that you have worth. And always feel that your life has ultimate significance.
The power of the human voice is something that I don't think is realized as much as it should be. And I'm not just talking about already established celebrities. You watching this video, yes, you have a voice. And that voice has more potential than you could ever imagine. But that is only realized through action and determination. Whether that's contributing to a peaceful protest or expressing your opinions via a social media platform. I know it sounds cliche, but you can make a difference too. And I mean that. If you have a dream, why not go after it? If there is something you believe the world needs more of, be that thing. Make yourself proud. Every generation of cartoons has taken inspiration from the ones that came before it. And when we look at cartoons today, modern animation shows and films, we can clearly see how much the medium has grown. And technology is better. The storytelling is deeper. The styles are constantly changing. But this kind of evolution isn't random. From a biblical perspective, growth is intentional. Creation develops on purpose. It builds. It multiplies. Cartoons didn't evolve by accident. They evolved through creativity, effort, and design. In many ways, animation reflects the creative nature God placed inside humanity. And Jesus often spoke about growth using simple images everyone could understand. He said, "Every good tree bears good fruit." Cartoons, like that tree, have grown over time and produced many different kinds of fruit. Some meant purely for fun, and others that leave a lasting impact. In the end, animation isn't just about drawings moving on a screen. It's about creativity, growth, and the creator with a capital C who made all of it possible. So then Courage finally starts to figure it out that he can start to be creative again. And he doesn't have to live up to these unrealistic expectations about who he should be. All he has to do is do the very best he can and let the Holy Spirit lead him in the right direction. Courage's purpose here on Earth is to protect his family from the trauma he once faced when he was a little pup. And he does that not perfectly, but that's okay. Everything isn't perfect. This ending isn't perfect. This show isn't perfect. And you watching this, you aren't perfect. But that's okay, because we don't need to be perfect. But here's a very dark realization I'm having right now that, we pause right here where they're all sitting at the dinner table, forming a decent bond with each other, right? And none of them realize Shoko's mother, Yuzuru, and Shoya, they're all unaware of the fact that Shoko wants to kill herself, that she's about to do the unthinkable within the next couple of hours. They're completely unaware. Moments like this, they exist in this life, right? Where we're unaware of how the person we're sitting next to actually feels, like what they're actually planning on doing, how they feel about their existence. And that's why it's always important to be kind. You never really know what anyone's going through, even though somebody may look like they're in a good mood, even though somebody may look like everything's okay, even though somebody may look like nothing's wrong. That person could be going through so much suffering. You would never know because society encourages us to always put a smile on our face, to always force this false perception of who we actually are so that we may be accepted in our community. Could that be part of the reason why Shoko feels the way that she does? So in the fireworks scene, Shoko says her final goodbye to Shoya. Shoya at this point, he's now realizing what Shoko is about to do. He thinks that Shoko is just going to study for some school assignment or something. But she secretly has these dark thoughts in her mind about who she is as a person and about what she's about to do within the next couple of minutes. Shoya follows Shoko because he is told by Shoko's sister that he needs to get a camera. But to his shock, he notices Shoko climbing on the balcony, about to do the unimaginable. And he runs as fast as he can to grab her. And he just prays to God that God would give him the strength to save Shoko. He starts to contemplate how he used to unfairly treat her, how he used to unfairly pick on her, how he used to treat her in the past has created a butterfly effect that has led to this moment right here. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is the full extent of what hatred can do to a human being. It can lead to this. He prays, he says, God, if you save her, I promise to look people in the eye, I promise to open my heart, that he'll be better in general.
Starting tomorrow, I'll listen when people speak to me.
And here's a very devastating realization he has in this moment where he not only notices the scar that he gave her all those years ago, but he also starts to ask himself, what does this person really think about me? Because he still hasn't found the answer to that question. He has no idea how Shoko really feels about him. That's the unfortunate part about death sometimes, that we're not able to get all the answers we're looking for. Let's say Shoko's attempt was successful. Shoya would have never been able to know that Shoko had feelings for him. He would have never known that. He would have always assumed probably the worst case scenario. And that's why it's important to treat people kind now while we still see them. That way we're not thinking about what if I would have did this or what if I would have did that, and the least we can do is to be loving in the moment that we have with each other right now. And that's what I got in this scene right here. How important it is to love one another like how Jesus loves.
We were all so worried about you.
And all the characters, except for Naoka, not surprising, treats her with more kindness than she was expecting. And it is here, ladies and gentlemen, where we really get to see the power of kindness, the power of love. Love destroys hatred. Love is the answer. Here's an amazing quote in this movie. Shoya tells Shoko, even though certain things may make life difficult sometimes, it's not worth dying over, whatever it is. He says this because he himself wanted to commit suicide. It's not just her, they both had that thought for different reasons. Shoya wanted to do it out of guilt and regret, and Shoko wanted to do it because she felt like a burden to the world. Both of these reasons can be solved with a little bit of love. You give Shoya a little bit more love, and he can find peace in his life. You give Shoko a little bit more love, and she can find peace in her life. So what I'm getting at is that whether we realize it or not, we can have an impact on people who feel this way about themselves, and we can change the way they perceive themselves and how they perceive the world around them, just with a little bit of kindness. With a little bit of kindness, with a little bit of love, with a little bit of understanding, we can make people excited again to live. That is the power of love. Shoya asks Shoko to teach him how to live because he feels like he's been doing it wrong until this point. And he once again cringes at his suggestion, if you will, in a very likable, relatable way. Our problems that we think are huge are actually laughably tiny when you compare them to how massive the universe is, which is a good thing. This mindset can heal anxiety in some cases. Now, what does this have to do with the meaning of life? I have no idea. Anyway, after the literal sun explodes, Gumball and Darwin pretty much give up, only to be treated with the most, for lack of a better term, intellectual answer in the whole episode.
Life's not about the destination, it's about the journey and making friends along the way. The search for meaning is in fact the very thing that gives our life meaning, so really the only true meaning of life is finding your own way to enjoy it.
She makes two arguments here. The search for meaning gives our lives meaning, and the only true meaning of life is finding your own way to enjoy it. I would agree that the search for meaning does, in a sense, give your life meaning. But I also think that you can be deceived into thinking that your search is the correct path. If it's the wrong path, then it would be meaningless. Let me explain. This is an extreme example, but to those who follow the devil's religion, does that give their life meaning? No, that makes their life pointless, because they'll ultimately end up in hell if they do that. This is why it's dangerous to say that the search for meaning gives your life meaning, because you can be deceived. And about her second quote, sure, people can enjoy life in many ways. Some people love to date, some people love to surf, some people love to dance. But what about those who enjoy being a villain? What about the people who love to bully, who love to ruin people's lives? That's their way of enjoying life in their eyes. Is that the meaning of life for them? Right, that can't possibly be it. But you see, actually, this character believes that there is no meaning to life. She believes you make up the meaning. That the meaning can be whatever you want. Who cares? That's the argument a lot of people have. Probably half the people watching this video would make that argument. You see, these people don't believe in a God. But the problem is, without God, it's very easy to become depressed or addicted to something toxic. It's easy to think that there is no hope, especially after death, because every problem ultimately points towards death. That inevitable day when life on earth passes away. We don't know the time and place when the things we love will die. However, there is hope when we open our closed minds. When you look at the birds, the trees, the flowers in the ground, when you see how the sun is perfectly positioned in order for this world to blossom with life, how there's systems everywhere, how there's an order to creation, I ask you now, how could God not exist?
The next thing that happened is he said, do you have any more questions before you leave? I said, you know, I got to think about this. And I thought, I was thinking really hard, what am I going to ask God? Couldn't think of anything. I wanted to be really smart enough to ask him something very pertinent. And so I said, well, I'm going to have to revert to an old cliche. What's the meaning of life? And he starts laughing again. I said, what's so funny now? And he says, well, I don't know why, but a lot of people ask me that question, and it's really real simple. But I tell you what, when you come back, we'll sit down. You can ask me all the questions that you ever will have. I'll answer for you. So I said, okay. He says, okay, it's time for you to go back. And I turned around. I'm sorry, but he put his arms around me. He put his arms around me. And it was a feeling that I can't explain. It was unconditional love, but it was words. I can't tell you the words. And I'm sorry, but I always act like this because I can feel it again. So, it changed my life.
If you asked God, what's the meaning of life? What do you think he would say? You might say love, but let me explain why I don't think it's love. It's because you can love the wrong things. Just like how Richard loves gluttony. You can love lust, you can love money, you can love the world. But these are all things that God warns us not to love. With that being said, we have finally reached the part where I explain what I personally believe the meaning of life is. Ladies and gentlemen, the meaning of life is to find, to know / understand, to thank, to love, and to serve the one true God and Savior, Jesus Christ. Even for unbelievers, they're all looking for something. It's just they don't realize that it's God. They think it's sex or drugs or getting high or living their best life. But it's none of those. Why? Because that's the easy thing to do. That's what your body wants to do. Now, if that's the meaning of life to you, then fine. If that's what you want to do, then who am I to stop you? All I'm saying is, this stuff is not going to matter once our time on earth is over. Again, what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses his own soul? But when you stand before God in the afterlife and he asks you, what did you do to express gratitude for the one who died for you? What will you say?
It means someday you're gonna meet God.
Fun fact, the Bible says that in the last days, people will make fun of the truth. Nowadays, it seems like at least half of the population treats Jesus like a meme. Like it's all a joke. The problem is, people don't understand who Jesus was. He wasn't just some random guru or historical figure with no real power like people believe. He wasn't just another prophet. He wasn't just some spiritual teacher. Let me ask you a question. What is the greatest act of love? The most loving thing you could possibly do for someone? Take a look at this clip. This is a clip of a character who sacrificed their life so that another character could live. Now imagine if someone did that for you in real life. I want you to take a moment to process how it would feel if someone saves your life and gave up theirs just so you could be free. because he/she sacrificed their life for you, that person automatically becomes your motivation, your inspiration, your reason to live. Because it's impossible to forget and leaves such an amazing impact on your life. You see, people don't understand that Jesus did exactly that for them. Again, they treat him like a meme now. They don't respect him. They treat his story like it's some fairy tale. It's because they don't understand. He died so that we could live. All we have to do is believe and repent. But why would he do that? Why would he sacrifice his life for us? Because we're all imperfect human beings. And in order to live with a perfect and holy God for eternity, you have to be perfect, which of course is impossible. Therefore, Jesus made a way for us to live with God after we die, when he sacrificed his life via crucifixion, which paid for the penalty of our wrongdoing. Let's say you went to jail, and the only way for you to get out of jail is by paying a $1 million fine. Then some random guy walks to your cell and offers you $1 million on the spot, just as long as you repent and trust in him for the rest of your life. Wouldn't you feel a sense of gratitude for that miracle? I know I would. That's the point of this entire video. Thank you, God, for saving my life.
On the day of my judgment, when I stand before God and he asks me, why did I kill one of his true miracles? What am I going to say? That it was my job.
If anybody watches this and rejects Jesus, that's your choice. But you're rejecting the only person who can save you from spiritual prison, which is everlasting torment. Because we've all broken the law. And I don't mean the government's law. I mean God's law. We've all lied, stolen something, used God's name as a curse word, lusted after somebody, etc. You may not think that this is a big deal, but to a perfect and holy God, it's a very big deal, and rightfully so. God has no favorites. Who can stand before God and say, I'm good enough to make it into heaven? Let me in. Only Jesus could say that. Because again, you have to be perfect. You have to live an absolutely perfect life without doing anything wrong whatsoever. That's the only alternative. But thank God there is a simple solution. Just find, know, thank, love, and serve the Savior, Jesus Christ. And that is the meaning of life. So, why do we, as human beings, resort to immoral lust? Well, based on my experience and how I can relate to Artie, my answer to that would be loneliness, frustration, not being understood, lack of confidence, or all of the above. But the root of all of that is fear. Fear is the reason why we give up on trying to do it God's way, the courageous way. We're afraid that we'll be single for life. We're afraid that there's no hope for us in a particular area. We're afraid that our marriage will never be the way that we want it. And instead of talking to God about it, which requires faith and trust, we instead temporarily satisfy these desires with our fantasies. and justify it by saying it's not hurting anybody, when in the end, it's hurting us mentally and spiritually in ways that we don't realize, that we can't see yet, that we will one day regret. I promise you, if you go at least 1 year nofap, you'll not only feel much better about yourself, but you'll have a better understanding of who God is. Again, immoral lust will blind us from seeing the truth, but once it's given up, opportunities and purpose for living starts to become more clear. Artie doesn't have any faith in the idea that he could find an actual, real woman who loves him. It's almost like the movie Her. In that movie, the main character falls in love with an AI girlfriend. Think Siri from the iPhone, but on steroids. I don't know about you, but I don't care how hot my fake girlfriend is. If she destroys my relationship with God, then she's not worth it.
I won. This is a good beginning of my plan to dominate the human race.
Because as proven by true stories, there's something after this life that's 1,000,000 times better than lust will ever be. And if I have to give up immoral lust to receive that, then it's totally worth it. Artie reveals that this was his attempt to actually pursue the real Marge back to him in some kind of twisted way. He thought if she saw how perfect they looked together on the big stage, then maybe, just maybe, she would realize that they were always meant to be. But how foolish do you have to be to do that? To want to steal somebody else's wife? How foolish do you have to be to idolize somebody who you don't even know that well? Marge kindly gives him some advice and cheers him up a bit. She tells him that this crazy project of his actually has some brilliance to it. She encourages him to instead use the technology for good rather than evil. And that's what a lot of us need to realize. I'm not saying to give up on people or to give up on love so easily, but there's a right and a wrong way to pursue somebody. Throughout the rest of this episode, all the fake Marge robots continue to reject him. They want nothing to do with him. The man just won't take a hint. And that's the frustrating part about this character. He's perfectly capable of moving on and finding someone better for himself, but he refuses to take that option. There's a quote at the end of this episode that summarizes this entire video.
The future is a really long way away. Things are changing. The future is now!
That's the truth. The future is already here. AI in itself is already addicting. And when you combine that with the addicting PMO or lust in general, imagine how addicting it could be for those of us who simply don't care about morals, purity, or godly behavior. Jesus once said, "Anyone who drinks this water will soon become thirsty again. But those who drink the water that I give will never be thirsty again." It becomes a fresh, bubbling spring within them, giving them eternal life. I don't know about you, but that to me sounds better than what PMO or XXX could ever offer. Imagine living forever without anxiety, without pain, without worries related to this life. You'll be free. You'll be free from suffering. You'll be free from loneliness. You'll be free from any kind of depression. And most importantly, you'll be free from the lie that immoral lust is your friend, when in actuality, it's your worst enemy in disguise. All you have to do is listen and do what this guy on your screen right now says. Don't waste any time. After all, the future is already here. The characters are reminded of the lesson that money isn't everything. Another message I could add is, have fun with life, but don't get carried away. Be humble, be grateful for what you have, be grateful for all your blessings, be grateful for your life. It's so easy to get carried away, be greedy, take things for granted, take people for granted, take oxygen for granted, take plants for granted, take a roof over your head for granted, take beds for granted, take food for granted, take water for granted. And when we do that, we forget we're already rich in nature, not because of the material items we have, but because God designed us that way. You never know when something you love will be taken away from you. After all, nothing lasts forever. There's a saying that goes, you don't know what you got until it's gone. To those of you who are still waiting for the perfect thing, whatever that thing is for you personally, it's never going to be perfect. Again, it is important to keep trying, grinding, and dreaming for new things and new opportunities. However, there comes a time and place where you realize if what you're pursuing is borderline perfection, then perhaps what you really want isn't this material thing. What you really want is God. But when you finally win in life, don't let that change who you are. Always have a humble heart, no matter what. If you can remember that, the money won't get to you. The attention from girls won't make you think you're the most attractive person on the planet. And the expensive material possessions won't make you believe you're Bill Gates all of a sudden. All you really need is God. Nothing else compares. Thank you for watching. So, you finally meet someone you really like. You get an opportunity to get closer to her via conversation, text messaging, or officially going on a date, hoping to have interests alike. The problem is, you're nervous as hell and don't want to screw it up. But you figure you made it this far already, why not suit up and see what's up about this opportunity? Your heart starts racing, you begin to feel the pressure. You know you don't want to put this person on a pedestal, but still you make the mistake of trying too hard to impress her, rather than simply observing if you two have mutual chemistry together. You see, love is not forced. Most of the pressure should come from excitement, not from anxiety as the source. I've been there many times, I can relate to the pain, so allow me to explain the mistakes we make that drive many of us insane. First of all, failing to prioritize love over lust leads to confusion. Who is this girl really? What does she have to offer other than her body? Without this information, you're creating an illusion, a delusion, if you will. The problem is, most people simply aren't willing to sacrifice lust for love. Ironically, waiting until marriage to have sex will help you win her trust. Statistically speaking, relationships are more likely to succeed in this way. If you have the self-discipline for it, it sends a message to the woman that you're not with her to just play. And this isn't about religion. This is about a decision to focus on what actually matters. Speaking of what matters, another mistake that causes unnecessary anxiety and pressure is focusing too much on labels. Who cares if you're beta, alpha, blue-pilled, or red-pilled? These fables. It puts an unnecessary expectation on you to be perfect, otherwise no girl will like you, as they imply. It's just stupid too. This isn't a video game. It's not like everyone's walking around carrying a visible ranking like it's 2K. Not only in relationships, but in everything, trust God. For an unbeliever, this may sound odd, but it's fundamentally important, and here is why. At the end of the day, she's just a girl. This is facts, something you cannot deny. She's not God. Understanding this develops maturity and will destroy your insecurities. There are over 4 billion females in the world. To say there isn't at least one who you'll get along with just sounds absurd. Trying to be perfect will destroy you. Friends don't have to try unbelievably, impossibly hard to become friends. It just naturally happens. Think about your best friend. You know this is true. Focus on expression, worry less about impression. If for whatever reason it doesn't work out with this girl, it's not the end of the world. How you respond, you decide. I know heartbreak can hurt, but this isn't something we need to commit suicide over. I believe heartbreak is just a part of life. You have to be willing to get your heart broken in order to find a wife. Telling her your feelings, your intentions, for your sake will save you from unanswered questions. It saves you from wasted time. It's okay to be nervous, but it's important to note that you don't have to be, okay? God has your back, and if you believe that, you'll be alright either way. Remember, no matter how amazing someone seems, they're not God, understood? So shoot your shot, and if it works out, good. If it doesn't, that's also good. Treat it like a learning experience, and don't be so serious. Have fun with it. You're not going to go from date number 1 to wedding day in a week, so take it one step at a time, bit by bit. So overall, what is love? Martin Luther King Jr. famously once said, "Hatred paralyzes life, love releases it. Hatred confuses life, love harmonizes it. Hatred darkens life, love illuminates it." And we are all familiar with what MLK did for mankind. He was obviously driven by something much greater than himself. He literally put his life on the line to save his brethren, similar to Jesus Christ. Except Jesus took this a step further when he chose to sacrifice his life to save mankind from their evil sins, so that they could be forgiven and live with him for eternity in heaven by simply repenting from intentional sin, then believing in him. There is no love greater than this that has ever been recorded in history. This is love. In addition, the importance of love is explained in these 3 quotes. "Anyone who does not love does not know God, for God is love. Let everything you do be done in love. Love is patient and kind. Love is not jealous or boastful or proud or rude. It does not demand its own way. It is not irritable and keeps no record of being wronged. It does not rejoice about injustice, but rejoices whenever the truth wins out." So don't forget to express your love towards one another today. And thank you all for watching.
I know what's going on here. They did it to Jesus, and now they're doing it to me.
Are you comparing yourself to our Lord?
Well, in bowling ability.
Homer claims to believe in Jesus, yet he doesn't talk to him about his problems. A lot of people like to make the argument along the lines of, if God was real, then why are there problems in my life? Why are there problems in the world? Well, the truth is, Jesus never promised us that we wouldn't have problems and conflicts in this world. In fact, he says the opposite. As the story continues, he starts to wonder if his life has peaked. It's hard for him to accept the idea that the greatest accomplishment of his life is already forgotten. He got so spoiled by everyone's validation that it's hard for him to appreciate the simple gifts in life, like a loving family, for example. This idea that his life is somehow over now because he feels like nobody cares about him anymore causes him to do something very heartbreaking. Although the events you're about to see are a bit exaggerated, this is a decent example of what happens when we think the point of life is to be famous, rich, and/or validated by people. Life will eventually feel meaningless with this mindset. Homer has to realize that his life isn't defined by his status, and God is bigger than himself and can help him with his problems. His brainwashed mind causes him to contemplate suicide, and then a moron pushes him off the edge. By the grace of God, he is saved by some guy doing a bungee jump.
Oh Lord, you saved me. I guess you had some higher purpose in mind.
You see, I already knew going into this video that I wasn't going to be able to convince everyone watching this that God is real, that Jesus is real, because usually what skeptics and atheists require is some kind of scientific evidence.
How often atheists, both old and new, will say something like, well, where's your evidence for God? If you imagine God as one more big contingent thing among others, well then there's no evidence for that reality. They're operating out of a scientific framework. But see, if you're looking for God that way, you'll never find him. That's not what he is. God is the sheer act of existence itself, in and through which all particular things exist. But people get caught up in misunderstanding God and therefore seeking him in a sort of empirical scientific way. That's not going to work.
In the scriptures, for example, Jesus is a miracle worker. He's able to do the impossible, feeding 5,000 people with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, and walking on water. Also, if for whatever reason you need additional proof, the history is there. It's just a matter of whether or not you want to deny the facts.
So what is, in your mind, the fastest way to disarm a mythicist?
So say, yeah, but you're a Christian. Okay, Bart Ehrman, an atheist New Testament scholar. Bart Ehrman gives 15 independent sources for the crucifixion of Jesus within 100 years. Now, 100 years is actually kind of strict, but it's a nice, narrow parameter for saying Jesus lived. 100, and here's an atheist, 100 years time, 15 different sources evidencing Jesus' death. If he died, he had to have lived.
Now, I can't answer all the questions about God because I'm just some random YouTuber sharing his experiences and perspective. And I'm not trying to imply that I got my life figured out either. Far from it. I'm still learning. Just recently, in 2022, I had sort of a new age to Jesus shift in faith. And while my story is too deep and complicated to go into now, I can say I highly recommend watching testimonies like the ones you see on screen. Please don't make the mistake that I made. Don't subconsciously believe that you're wiser than the best-selling book of all time, containing over 31,100 verses, because the wisdom and history goes deep. In this scene, Homer develops a new motivation and drive after such a traumatic event. He vows to help more people and to appreciate his family more.
I'll dedicate my life to my children.
He spends some quality time with his daughter Maggie. Fast forward to the end of the episode, he almost drowns trying to enjoy a day with her at the beach. Maggie, using her random superhuman strength, risks her life to save Homer, and proves to him once and for all that he is loved and validated.
Oh, you do love me!
She both metaphorically and literally slaps some sense into him that he actually does have not only someone, but a whole family that cares about him. I believe that's similar to how God feels about all of us. I'm not saying I don't get dark and lonely days, but I've noticed part of the reason why people are afraid to believe and live for God is because they believe God is angry at them, doesn't care about them, and won't forgive them for something shameful they did. I believe as long as we do our best, change our ungodly ways for the better, and put our trust in God, the best thing to do is to leave guilt behind and be as great as we can be in the present moment. The book of Romans chapter 8 verse 1 says, "There is now no condemnation, no guilty verdict, no punishment for those who are in Christ Jesus, who believe in him as personal Lord and Savior."
I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you.
In the words of Jesus, even if you do not believe me or have faith in me, at least believe the works that I do. Admit that they are the works of God, so that you may know and keep on knowing clearly without any doubt that the Father is in me and I am in the Father. That is, I am one with him. In conclusion, God wants us to love one another and to live with purpose, not just for numbers, validation, and status, because the only validation that ultimately matters is his validation, not validation from people. Now, it's not just about believing this, it's about living like it. Actions speak louder than words. We should live and love for something greater than ourselves. God is literally the equivalent to love. So I like to think anyway, where there is love, there is God. This is proof that God is with us wherever we go. While it may be true that we can't physically see God, he is with us. Remember, everything starts with hope, and everything is possible with God. So I encourage you to be like Homer in this ending. Take delight in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. I'm sure many of you can relate to what I'm about to say next, but throughout my life, every time I hit what feels like rock bottom, that's when I receive a massive breakthrough. 1 to 2 weeks later, I get this awesome idea. I decided to combine both the motivational speaker part of me and the nerdy editor part of me and create this new series. And this time I was like, I don't care how many views I get, how many subscribers I get from this, or how many comments I get. I've already decided that this is what I was going to do, and I was going to have fun with it. I was going to make these motivational video essays, and I was going to live with the results. At that time, it became less about the views for me. It became more about just helping at least one person. If I could help at least one person with my content, that put the pressure off me a little bit and helped me know I was doing my job. 300,000 subscribers later, I guess we can say that was the right call. The point of this story is to prove that anybody can live their dream right now. You don't have to wait until you have $10,000 in your bank account. You don't have to wait until you have all the right equipment. You don't have to wait until you have 300,000 subscribers. Before this channel hit 100,000 subscribers, I was making content that in my heart I felt was worthy of 100,000 subscribers. I didn't give a damn about the views or the analytics. I wasn't going to wait until people finally started to pay attention to me. I wasn't going to allow the numbers to decide who I was going to be or the quality of my content. What mattered to me wasn't the numbers. What mattered to me wasn't how many people liked what I was doing. What mattered to me was that I was making something that I was passionate about and that I believed in. I believe that due to Instagram, due to social media in general, due to the way the entertainment industry is constructed, we believe that the dream is fulfilled once we're successful. Once I make the NBA, once I get this record deal, or once I get this viral video, then my dream is fulfilled. Then my life will change. While that is true to an extent, it's easy to get trapped by that self-limiting belief and get depressed about the lack of results. When this happens, we miss the beauty of what's right in front of us, the dream. It wasn't until I realized that the dream is not when, it's now. That's when this channel actually started to gain an unbelievable amount of subscribers. With all that being said, there are a few very important people I would like to thank for this milestone. I would like to thank Failski Bum for being the first big YouTuber to comment and support my videos back when this channel barely had any subscribers. I would like to thank Chris Smooth, the GOAT YouTuber. I would like to thank Mr. Amazing for inspiring me with his voice direction and editing skills. I would like to thank my family for supporting me. I want to thank you for watching and supporting this channel. And most importantly, I would like to thank God, the Creator, Christ Jesus, for making this all possible. Nothing is possible without God. Let me repeat that. Nothing is possible without God. If He did this for me, imagine what He'll do for you with enough faith. I recently watched an amazing movie about World War II called Unbroken. In the movie, there was a scene where the main character, Louis Zamperini, is tortured in isolation by the Japanese Navy. Just thought I would share that here. To put it simply, living the rest of your life in your house is definitely going to make you lonesome.
Just sitting in your house? Ain't you gonna get lonesome?
I won't be lonesome. I've got all the friends I need right here.
That's quite delusional thinking, and I'm actually guilty of not only practicing this behavior, but encouraging it on my viewers in the past. Aristotle, a legendary Greek philosopher, once said, "Man is by nature a social animal. An individual who is unsocial naturally and not accidentally is either beneath our notice or more than human. Society is something that precedes the individual." If you're familiar with the story Genesis, there is a quote that says, "It is not good for man to be alone." The fact of the matter is that as social creatures, we do need friends. We do need to be consistently connecting with some kind of family. We shouldn't allow one traumatizing situation, one bad person, one traumatizing event to brainwash our minds with this false idea that that's how people really are. That that's how the world really is. Don't let SpongeBob's smiles deceive you in this episode. He thinks he's doing something smart by staying indoors forever, but he's actually in denial and is just going to make things worse for him. This expression on his face is temporary. Let's say, hypothetically, he did this for months on end and really took it seriously. I guarantee you, he would become severely depressed. What SpongeBob is doing here is basically the equivalent of putting himself in jail. I can confirm that this type of behavior can lead to delusions, paranoia, depression, and even PTSD. This is because you slowly but surely lose your mind. But the real kicker is that when it's happening, you don't even realize it.
Take it away, Penny!
That Penny has the most beautiful voice.
My intent with this message is not to shame introverts. I'm very well aware that we all have different personalities and different desires. My point with this video is when we get hurt emotionally or physically, it's very easy to allow fear to control our lives and block the love that is outside. As this episode concludes, SpongeBob attempts to conquer his fear by stepping outside to save his friends. When a piece of paper flies into his face, he has a panic attack, but then realizes it's just his imagination. This sequence here can portray many of our fears. A relatable one is this feeling that after asking someone out, the world's going to explode or something. When in actuality, once you do it, you feel relief. You feel free. You feel like you have nothing to hide anymore, regardless of their reaction. You're proud of yourself for at least trying. You say, that actually wasn't so bad. If I can do that, then I can do anything. What's interesting is this episode doesn't end on this positive note that all of our fears are exaggerated and nothing bad will happen if you go outside. Instead, it ends in the most bizarre way possible. This random gorilla shows up and tears SpongeBob in half, and the fourth wall is broken.
What's a gorilla doing underwater in the first place?
A talking zebra of all things shows up, and they ride off into the sunset, plotting their next evil attack probably, I don't know. Not even the family watching this episode in the episode know what the hell this ending is. What I took away from this very strange ending is this message. When we step outside, it's not always going to look pretty. We might get rejected, we might get hurt, or we could even be the witnesses of something random and unexpected like whatever this was. But if life was easy, then why bother? See the obstacles in life as an opportunity to grow and learn. Before NBA legend Kobe Bryant was able to win 5 NBA championships, he shot 3 air balls in a row in an elimination playoff game. Before Kanye West inspired millions with his music, he suffered an awful car accident in 2003. Before Johnny Bravo was able to find the girl of his dreams on Valentine's Day, he got rejected hundreds of times. In life, we're going to get hurt in some way, shape, or form, but we shouldn't let that stop us from making friends, from having fun, and from happiness in general. Thanks for watching. Contrary to what XXX websites have brainwashed our generation into believing, the truth is, we can't hook up with them all. And when we try to hook up with them all, we get ourselves into trouble. There is no such thing as a perfect partner. There will always be someone who looks hotter. There will always be someone who is better at flirting. There will always be someone who will make it so easy to get a quick one in. The solution is to pursue love that will last, rather than lust that will only make us regret our past. Lust is hasty, but love is patient. Lust is deceitful, but love is careful. Lust is temporary, but love lasts forever. XXX websites fundamentally twist our reality for the worst. Over time, the brain will start to believe in this foolish idea that having sex with hundreds of attractive people is not only possible, but it's the best way and the only way. Then, without even realizing it, we subconsciously become entitled to that reality. Take it from someone like NBA legend Wilt Chamberlain, who said it himself. It's reported that he slept with over 20,000 women in his life. Some people watching this might think that sounds like heaven, but according to Wilt, having one woman 1,000 times is more satisfying.
The idea was to say that, sex really rules the world.
If Homer was real, I'm sure his message to the world would be to never take for granted the value of a good heart, a good personality, and a good family. Because something that good can last a lifetime. Don't forget to express yourself, and thanks for watching.
But did you think you were fat, Harold? Huh? Did you think you were fat?
Of course not. I like the way I was.
Well, there's your answer.
Arnold's point here is that he should only pursue changing his weight if it's something that he actually wants to do, not because it's something that people told him he should do. Like I said at the beginning of this video, what one person may find attractive may not be everyone's cup of tea, but that's okay. Not saying I would, but let's say I wore a Dora the Explorer shirt that I thought was fire. Would I be judged and criticized for it? Absolutely, but would I still wear it if it's an authentic expression of my personality and the shirt was comfortable? Yes, people may laugh, but whatever, laughter is good. As the story concludes, they work to get him back to his old weight, a size that he himself is comfortable with. When it's time for him to reveal himself to the public, he walks with confidence, proud of his transformation. His self-love rubs off on others, and they see his transformation the same way he does. Why is this? It's not so much about what you look like, it's about how you carry yourself. Body language, facial expressions, and confidence in general can make anyone go from a 5 out of 10 to a 10 out of 10. What I love about this episode is it also is trying to say that if you truly want to change, that's okay too, and you can do it. All it takes is having a goal in mind and believing that you can get to that goal. Now, I'm not a fitness coach, but here's a photo of me, not to brag or anything, but as proof that what I'm about to say has some truth to it. Calisthenics is really all you need, and it's all Harold needs in this episode. No equipment is required other than maybe a public park. These are exercises you can do anywhere. Push-ups, pull-ups, dips, squats, and throwing some cardio in there is what has helped me and is what I would recommend for anyone who wants to know where to start. There are hundreds of channels that can explain this better than me. Some of the ones I recommend are the ones shown on screen. Before this video ends, I want to mention that Instagram is the best way to contact me if you have a question or want to talk to me about something. My DMs are always open, and I appreciate every heartfelt message you guys send. It motivates me to continue making these videos. Arnold's fifth step to getting rid of an addiction is to uncover the trauma behind the addiction. One of the highlights of this episode is it gives the message addictions is only half the problem. It's what caused the habit in the first place that also needs to be brought into attention. Regardless of how embarrassing or confusing our habits are, the fact of the matter is every addiction starts somewhere. Most of the time, it's used to cover up suffering from our past. When Arnold sits Chocolate Boy down and guides him through the process of deeply contemplating his past, he remembers that the person that got him so hooked on chocolate was his nanny, who always used to take good care of him. However, one random day, she moved away and he never saw her again. The chocolate that she gave him right before she left is what started his addiction.
It's okay that you miss your nanny, but eating chocolate is not going to bring her back.
I know.
She told you to be good and to be happy. What would your nanny think if she saw you now, eating chocolate out of dumpsters?
She wouldn't like it, 'cause I'm not being good and I'm not happy.
You can be happy if you stop eating chocolate.
All of a sudden, Chocolate Boy has some new motivation to get off his addiction, doing it for his nanny. Similarly to what I said earlier, if our reason for quitting is bigger than ourselves, then it will only make it easier and more meaningful. Finding our motivation gets us thinking more positively rather than believing in those self-defeating thoughts. So when we replace those self-defeating thoughts with thoughts such as, I can be happy, I am loved, I can accomplish my dreams, and truly believe in those statements, we can congratulate ourselves because we've officially reached the final step. Positive affirmations.
I can be good.
You can be happy.
I can be happy.
You don't need chocolate.
I don't need chocolate.
You're free.
I'm free. I'm free. Free of chocolate. Haha, yeah. I'm free. No more chocolate.
Because Chocolate Boy truly believes it in his heart, and he dealt with the hidden loneliness that made him relapse again and again, he's freed from his addiction. And it shocks the entire school that they need to come up with a new nickname for him. Perhaps Radish Boy would be a good replacement, since Arnold says it doesn't take him long to get hooked on that new substitute of his. And that's also a realistic possibility we have to watch out for. It's so easy to replace one unhealthy addiction with another. Gotta get that dopamine rush somewhere, right? Well, the point is to be aware of that. In conclusion, some of us have common addictions, and some of us have strange addictions. To recover, it's not about shaming ourselves, but it's about developing momentum and investing in healthy habits that's going to put us in the right direction for improvement. What may seem like small progress is still progress. So whatever the obstacle is, we should be proud of ourselves for making any sort of progress. And when we surround ourselves with people who believe in us, success is right around the corner. Good luck, don't forget to express yourself, and thanks for watching. What I will leave you with is to never underestimate the power of family. Without a family, Courage would have never been able to cope with that shocking image of witnessing his parents blast off to outer space, and how powerless he felt in that moment. It might be what motivates him to protect his owners. By finding the motivation to continue, you can also show others what courage you have.
What courage you have.
So if Christmas is about giving, how come I ain't getting?
Eddy believes Christmas is a pointless holiday if he's not getting any gifts that appeal to him. Because of this limited perspective, he feels alone. With nothing else to do, he decides to give this whole giving thing a chance. He replaces a light bulb on a Christmas tree, and to his surprise, it helps him feel better about himself. Double D then acknowledges Eddy's unselfish gesture.
You gave willingly of your heart without thought of your own gain. This is the gift of giving, Eddy. This is what the spirit of Christmas is all about.
Giving can be as simple as giving a random stranger a smile or a compliment. It could be as simple as donating to charity, or in this case, it could be as simple as replacing a light bulb on a tree. When I do a random act of kindness for someone else, it makes me feel better about myself. Whether or not I get rewarded for it isn't in my control, and honestly, isn't really that important. There's a sense of self-pride that comes from being an angel for some stranger. People will remember your random act of kindness because they understand how unnecessary the action is and wouldn't do it themselves. I know this because when people do random acts of kindness for me, I remember it years later, even if it's something small and insignificant. Small actions can have a massive impact on people. In the words of Eddy,
Christmas ain't about what you find under a tree. Christmas is about what you find in your heart.
And that may be the most cheesy line of all time. Trust me, I know. I was laughing my ass off when he said that. But the core message is valid. I'm not gonna BS you with the ending. Eddy doesn't learn his lesson. He takes everyone's presents as soon as he gets the chance. But we can, at the very least, appreciate his short-lived moment of good intention. So, if you took anything away from this video, remember there's satisfaction that comes from giving to others, Ed and Eddy is still better than any modern day cartoon, and you're awesome for being here.
The monks used to say that hope is just a distraction, so maybe we do need to abandon it. What are you talking about?
What is Aang talking about here? Is there any truth to this viewpoint? Is hope nothing more than a distraction? The answer to this question is subjective, but for fairness, I want to look at it from both perspectives. On one hand, you could argue it is a distraction because it can blind us from seeing the truth about a particular situation. You could hope that the Earth is flat, but that doesn't mean the Earth is actually flat. In certain cases, if we rely on hope for too long and ignore the facts, we could live our lives in fantasy land. On the other hand, I could argue everything starts with hope. Look around your room, or look around the area that you're at. None of these man-made creations could be built without a vision, without an imagination, without hope. Hope is that motivating feeling that drives us to our destination. It's what gets us out of bed in the morning. It's what gets us to exercise. It's what gets us to eat healthier. We anticipate some sort of positive outcome to come from our actions. That's why when we have no hope and expect bad things to happen, life becomes miserable. As you'll see in this clip, Katara is clearly a fond believer of hope.
I know sometimes it hurts more to hope, and it hurts more to care. But you have to promise me that you won't stop caring.
So now I think would be a good time to mention, this episode revolves around a woman who is pregnant and is looking for a safe place to give birth. Aang is given the responsibility to protect and care for the woman and her family. When the baby is born later in the episode, Aang is blown away by the beauty of the scene. Tears of happiness flow down his face. At long last, he's found that spark of light in his dark cave. He found something actually worth smiling about. He found his hope.
I've been going through a really hard time lately, but you've made me hopeful again.
As shown in this scene, one of the best ways to find hope is by appreciating the miracle of life. Everyone has their own instant moments of happiness, or at the very least, activities that intrigue them in some way. For me, it's eating my favorite food, going on a hike in a forest, or riding a bike. These are just some of the many things that make me go, wow, life is actually pretty cool. As previously quoted in one of my videos, gratitude is the best medicine. It heals your mind, your body, your spirit, and attracts more things to be grateful for. Aang is grateful for his family. In the heat of the moment, he forgot his friends are not his enemies. If anything, they're the ones who care about him the most. At the end of this episode, he makes sure to express his appreciation for their support.
I thought I was trying to be strong, but really I was just running away from my feelings. Seeing this family together, so full of happiness and love, it's reminded me how I feel about Appa and how I feel about you.
So what are you grateful for? Whatever it is, appreciate it as much as you can, because nothing lasts forever. But at the same time, I think that's what makes the best things in life so precious. So never give up. I can tell you, based on my experience, hope is found where you least expect it. Thanks for watching. So in conclusion, gaining understanding helps in the process of letting go of something from the past. It's what has helped me forgive the people who have hurt me. And if I'm being honest, I'm not perfect either. I'm pretty sure I've hurt others throughout my life, and probably will in the future. Most of the time it is unintentional, yeah, but still it's completely possible to hurt someone and not even notice. But it is also possible to forgive yourself, and in doing so, it helps you forgive others the more you practice it.
Forgiveness is the first step you have to take to begin healing.
I'm sad, but at the same time I'm really happy that something can make me feel that sad. It makes me feel alive, you know? It makes me feel human.
When we fall into depression, we automatically assume that either there's something wrong with us, there's something wrong with our life, or there's something wrong with the world. But what kind of book, what kind of movie, what kind of story is all sunshine and rainbows? To write an interesting, compelling, and captivating story, you need conflicts. You need some type of adversity for the characters. Epictetus, an ancient philosopher who spent his life preaching about the value of Stoicism, once said, "We suffer not from the events in our lives, but from our judgments about them." That's one of my favorite quotes of all time because it helps you see a particular situation in a new light. You finally see the value in sadness, frustration, and depression. You realize you can be sad and not hate life. You can be sad and learn something new about you, your situation, or the world. You can be sad and love the fact that you're sad. As Butters puts it, it's like a beautiful sadness. His inspirational speech motivates Stan to slow down with his negative outlook on life and to instead move forward, even if it comes at the cost of leaving himself vulnerable to heartbreak, rejection, or disappointment.
Yeah, it still hurts a lot, but I just realized that there's gonna be a lot of painful times in life, so I better learn to deal with it the right way.
I like to think of nihilism as another word for detachment. It helps me let go of something that's bothering me and helps me see that in the grand scheme of things, it's not that big of a deal. Famous rapper J. Cole once said in one of his dopest songs, Love Yours, "There's beauty in the struggle." So remember, if something doesn't go your way, you fail at something, or you get rejected in public, it's okay. It doesn't mean anything, and that's what makes it okay. Kindness, love, and respect are all so important. We all know this, it's pretty obvious, but I think it's easy to forget the power of the butterfly effect. I want to make a video dedicated to this very concept, but to give you the general idea, we go through enough pain in this life as it is. So you never know what kind of disrespectful comment could do to someone's mental state, and vice versa. You never know what one simple, random act of kindness could do for someone. As the story demonstrates, if we truly got to understand the people that we hate, maybe there would be no more phobia.
You were willing to do all this just so I would be happy. Mom, I'd be honored if I turned out like you.
Even though she's bummed out, her dreams have taken a back seat. She knows in her heart, going back to her old school is the right decision. You might think the moral of this story is, a successful life is doing what makes you happy, like what Marge did in her senior year. But actually, I would argue that happiness isn't the answer. Why? Because you can be happy and still be selfish. Lisa chose unselfishness over her happiness. Some of the wisest leaders to ever walk on Earth have famously implied that unselfishness is the meaning of life. That is, making sacrifices for God and putting others before oneself, and the very acts of those practices is what makes a life a success. We all know in the back of our minds that there is no perfect answer to this question. And yet, despite that, we still appreciate direction in life and have goals regardless, almost as if there is a definitive answer that exists. We strive after what we believe would give us a great sense of satisfaction. Some people might even argue success is subjective, is a cop-out answer, an excuse to not be ambitious, to not take risk, and to not take action. This is a video of a homeless guy who calls himself the happiest man in London. He spends his days putting smiles on people's faces with his positive messages. Homeless people are often looked down upon as those who have hit rock bottom. Yet if you ask this guy, I'm sure he would tell you he considers his life a total success.
If you smile because you've got nothing, it means they can smile because they have something.
If you were to ask me to give a legitimate answer for what I believe a successful life is, it would be finding a way, or multiple ways, to make a positive impact on the world in your own special way. Similar to what this guy does for random people. It's basically Marge Simpson's job to be generous every day for her family. So I guess in this context, we could say she lives a pretty successful life. Lisa gets the chance to truly appreciate this characteristic of her mother by the end of the episode. It's because of this story, the homeless man with a smile, and a few profound answers from people I ran into, I now believe that success isn't what you have, it's what you give. This episode ends with Plankton enjoying his holographic meatloaf. He's finally able to see the beauty in his life and truly appreciate it. He realizes that his life isn't so bad, and that quote-unquote dream life that he envisioned is actually something he wasn't ready for. As he said, it's just not worth it.
Goodbye, everyone. I'll remember you all in therapy.
In conclusion, comparison truly is the thief of joy. Once you start believing that your life is awesome, or at the very least, can still be awesome, you win. You won't have to feel jealous or envious anymore. Because really what envy is greed. We're actually all rich. Abundance is a mindset, not some specific physical item. If you're watching this video, you're rich, and I can prove it. There was this brilliant analogy that I heard recently. Answer this question truthfully. Would you cut off your legs for $1 million? Would you cut them off for $2 million? How about $1 billion? If you're smart, the answer is no. So if your legs are worth more than $1 billion, guess what that means? You're rich. Likewise, your talents, family, health, nature, etc. They're all things that you can invest in to bring more joy into your life. So trust the process, and remember that even though it's not a nice juicy burger, holographic meatloaf is still a one-of-a-kind treat. As the story concludes, Stan defeats his profile and is sucked back into the real world. His Facebook page is officially deleted, and his life will be more enjoyable because of it. He could care less about the 0 friends he has because he knows, 1, there's more joy to be found in the real world, and 2, it's not about how many friends you have. It's about how good are the ones you already have. And that's what I respect about Stan in this episode. He doesn't need social media. He's grateful for what he already has. Everyone else in this episode worries too much about what they don't have instead of appreciating what's already theirs. Still, Stan gave social media a chance. He really did. But what he discovered was everything that he thought would happen did happen. But hey, just because it didn't work out for him doesn't mean it won't work out for you. But remember, social media should enhance your life, not destroy it. If you're ever feeling stressed on social media, something isn't right, and Stan will be the first one to tell you that. Every now and then, I come across these stories that remind me of how unpredictable life can be. Sure, you could take that in a positive way, but I'm mostly referring to those moments of misfortune, an illness, an injury, or a tragedy, for example. I'm no doctor, but there are some reactions that bother me that I just thought I would bring into light. And I do these too unintentionally, so I'm no exception. An immediate reaction would be to blame yourself, believing it's somehow your fault. Maybe you could have been more careful or something. But imagine saying that to someone else.
She probably got it because she's a creepy kid. Janice didn't get cancer because of something she did wrong. It just happened.
Exactly, it's rude. Now, if you wouldn't say it to someone else, don't say it to yourself. Not everything that happens to you is your fault. You don't deserve it and nobody else does. After that, you probably start asking why. Why is this situation the way that it is? But those types of questions will never have a definitive answer, and that has to be okay. There are some things in life that you just can't control. It's not because of something you did or something you could have done better, but just because some things aren't in your control doesn't mean that you don't matter. Shout out to Stewie Griffin. I think there's comfort in knowing that no matter what life throws at you, you're never alone. There's always someone going through something similar to what you're going through, and there's always someone or something that still loves you. There are people who will defend you against those who are uneducated and give you undeserved judgment.
What's the matter with her? She's bald! Janice has got leukemia, cemented!
Now, as for dealing with the situation itself, I think an optimistic mindset is important, but at the same time, I'm not going to sit here and act like positive thoughts will automatically fix the situation. It's okay to not be okay. That permission to allow yourself to express how you truly feel is incredibly important. There should be a balance between accepting the situation for what it is and never giving up.
I'm going to get well.
Regardless of what the future holds, appreciate what you can in the present moment. Appreciate your friends and family who appreciate you. It's only then will you realize your existence itself is a gift to the world.